Well, that's right. I've been snooping through Mr. Howard's journal. Don't act like you ain't never done it. There's something we can't resist about reading another fella's private thoughts. There's another one of the joys of being a servant. I know things about the Admiral that his wife won't never know. And there's all the gossip downstairs about who's sleeping with who. Not much in here, though. Lord, leave me not to my own wisdom, which is folly, nor to my own strength, which is weakness. Dull as a Sunday morning sermon, I'd say. Oh, and here's another. I think I never look into myself, lest I find some sort of sin and corruption in my heart. O God, do thou sanctify and cleanse the thoughts of my depraved heart. You know, it seems to me that them folks that do the most worrying about their sins, it's usually those that never spent much time sinning. I do wonder who this Jack is he keeps writing about. He's a bit of a blackguard, whoever he might be.
I'm sorry to disturb you, dear, but he seems worse today.
He's dying, I'm afraid. Do you know that Potemkin sent his personal physician to see him? He said we should let the fever run its course. I don't care much for letting nature run its course. Sounds like we're flying the white flag and the battle hasn't even begun.
Some things cannot be fought, Henry. Sometimes we just have to accept God's will.
God's will. Sounds like another way of flying the white flag. We're supposed to pray for their sick, but when they die, it's God's will. God's will sounds like a nice way of saying we don't know why things happen.
It's more than that, Henry. It's believing that things happen for a reason. When I was a little girl, I didn't know that I would meet you, but I believe God did. And I didn't know that because I met you and fell in love with you, that one day I would be living in Russia. But from the moment I said I do, I put my life into your hands. I trusted you enough to follow you here to this place, far away from my home. And in the very same way, I trust God enough to follow him and to believe he wants what's best for me. And in the end, I know he will be there to welcome me to my eternal home.
You sound just like Howard. He talked about his death as calmly as though he were going to a friend's house.
There is no one more ready for death than Mr. Howard.
You think so? I don't think anyone's really ready for death.
Well, I meant it in the divine sense.
Death in the divine sense? Is there really anything divine about death? When we give up this body, what's left? I don't fancy to wander around like a ghost. The spirit seems like such a bit of fluff to me. I try to imagine heaven sometimes, but I don't much think I'd trade an afternoon in the park for it.
When it comes to that, I don't think it's trading one thing or the other. I, for one, believe there's something much more than this life.
Isn't this life enough?
Well, maybe for you. You've lived a long and happy life. think about Katerina. Her time was over, really, before she had begun to live.
Well, you've got me there. Nothing sadder than the funeral of a child. And her mother and father were not even there to be with her.
Poor Katerina. She never even got to wear her special dress for St. Tatiana's Day.
Katerina. Katerina, is that you?
Yes, it was a fool's errand to send him to see her. I told him not to leave that morning, but he insisted on going.
And if he had saved her, would it have been all right then?
I suppose so.
Well, that's just it, Henry. When you believe, you don't have to wait to see how things will turn out. You just do the right thing and leave the rest to God.
And have you written to Whitford?
Yes, just as you instructed.
And I'm to be buried here.
We needn't think about that quite yet.
No, I've seen the face of death often enough to know when my time has come.
Would you like for me to send for a priest?
Thanks, but in my religion, I don't need someone to pray for me. My soul is already in the hands of God.
As you wish, John.
I want no pomp and circumstance at my funeral. I've lived simply all my life, and I choose to die that way as well. And there's to be no talk about markers or monuments. They tried that when I was alive, and I told them I had none of it. I have the statues in London, images of thieves and rogues.
All the more to remember our good men.
I don't believe there are any good men, just sinners saved by grace.
You know, John, I begin to think you don't want to be remembered.
You'd be right with that.
I never met anyone so determined to be forgotten.
It's not false humility on my part. There's much about my life I'd rather have forgotten.
That must be true for us all. But who would be buried in an unmarked grave?
If there must be a mark, I'll make it a sundial.
Tempest fugitive, eh?
Precisely. Let a man measure his days that he may get a heart of wisdom. I mean it, Admiral. I want no fuss made at my funeral.
Well, I'll convey your wishes. But once we're gone, we don't have much control over these things, and people will have their heroes.
Why don't you go lie down then, Roth? There's nothing more that you can do for me, and I'll rest easier knowing that you're not at hazard of my infection.
You insist. Maria, from time to time, will check in on you. I cannot tell you how distraught she is since you became ill.
She is kindness itself.
She feels personally responsible for your condition. It was she who urged you to go see the little girl.
I never thought you must convince her otherwise. These things are really in God's hands.
So she says, again and again. I only hope she believes it.
Mr. Howard? Howard? Look at me! Is it not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?
I can't believe my eyes. Is that you, Katerina?
What? Were you expecting someone else?
I really don't know what I was expecting, but... So, this is it?
Yes, this is it.
Well, it's just that it
does it look very much like...
Like heaven? It's funny, you should have difficulty saying the word. You talked about it all the time.
Well, it all seems so far away, like the stars or the setting sun, but this is just so ordinary.
But why should it be so different here? Did you think God was trying to punish us while we were on earth?
Well, no, I just thought it would be different.
Give it some time. You'll discover what's different soon enough.
I wonder, could I see Henrietta?
You're not quite ready for that. It was like what you said about being a child. It will take you some time to become that child again.
What do you mean?
Look around. What do you see?
Well, it really looks much like home. I recognize that little hill over there. I've spent many a fine hour beneath the shade of those trees. Only...
What?
Oh no, it's too ridiculous.
Don't be afraid.
Well, it seems there are oranges on some of those trees.
What else?
Well, there's a delicate scent in the air. Jasmine, I think. And I can hear music. It's the song I used to sing when I was a boy, working in the market. I don't understand this, Katerina. Are you here too, or is this place just for me? How does it work?
It's difficult to explain. Let me just say that the old rules don't work here. There's no such thing as time or place. No yesterday, no tomorrow. Yes, I can see your oranges and smell your jasmine, but only because I choose to be with you, and those things are part of you.
How long must I wait before I can see Henrietta?
A little while, when you are ready.
I thought you said there were no rules here.
No, I didn't say that. I said the old rules don't apply. Here, we all live the way. You'll feel it soon enough. Did you ever walk past a house on a cold day and see the glow of a warm fire and know that there was friendship and good cheer to be had inside? And no one tells you to go in, but you find yourself drawn in that direction. And that's what we mean by the way.
And what did you mean by I'm not ready yet?
You see, it's not the place that's so different, it's us. We have to become our truer selves.
I don't understand.
It's difficult to explain. It's like waiting for the fog to lift, or for an old wound to heal.
I do feel different.
Yes?
I don't know. Younger, happier. I don't feel as though I need to be somewhere else. I'm just happy being where I am and who I am.
No one ever thinks heaven will be fun. But I don't mean glorious or sanctimonious. I just mean fun, but that's really all it is.
But I'm not quite up to the mark yet. I'm missing something, aren't I?
There is one thing, but I know you can do it.
What is it?
Okay, so here we have to be totally honest.
Have I not been honest?
Not totally. Not with me. Not with yourself. It's your son, Mr. Howard. He isn't dead, is he?
He's been dead to me for many years, but yes, my son still breathes.
But why did you lie to me about him? What difference could it have possibly made if you had told me the truth?
It was just too painful. But here's the whole truth. My wife, Henrietta, she was so kind and so beautiful. I don't think I ever really felt worthy of her. One time, I offered to take her on a trip in celebration of our anniversary, and she said, "Oh, John, that's so generous of you, so kind, but couldn't we do something for our tenants instead?" So we put the money towards improving the cottages of some of our tenants. It always made her so happy to be doing good for others.
You must have loved her very much.
More than life itself. Henrietta was always of a fragile nature. When I would be sleeping beside her, I could hear the shortness of her breath. It worried me to hear her that way, so we moved down to the coast for a while to see if it could help improve her lungs, but she missed her family, and so we moved back to our home in Cardington.
And then the baby?
Yes. Of course, we were both overjoyed at the thought of having a son, but secretly, I was worried. Then Jack came into the world, and Henrietta seemed to have survived her ordeal, and I felt as though happiness was just within our grasp. And then, before I really understood how ill she was gone. I can't tell you how that crushed me inside. If there had been someone to talk to, someone who I could have told how I was feeling, but there was no one.
And then there was the question of what to do with Jack.
Yes. What to do with Jack? I tried to love him. Really, I did. The nanny would bring him down to me in the morning, and all I could see were her eyes and the curl of her lip. It was just too much for me. I distanced myself from him. I did everything that I ought to for him. I provided for all his needs, but there was never anything tender about our relationship. I treated him as my ward, not my child.
You told a friend once that you expected absolute obedience from your son. That if you expected him to put his hand in a candle flame, you wanted him to do it without hesitation.
You may blame me for this. I deserve every reproach. I was cold and unfeeling. I thought if I could just make him obedient to my commands, I could mold him into a man. But now I realize that without affection, tenderness is just a dull, hollow thing.
I haven't come to blame you, Mr. Howard. You've punished yourself enough. You're like a man who beats himself with a whip so he does not feel the pain inside. What you need is forgiveness.
But from where? Certainly not from Jack. He lies in an asylum, a stranger to his own mind. If I could go to him now, he would no more know me than the King of England.
It's you that must forgive. You must forgive yourself.
But how? I can't pretend that what I did was right. What's more, I knew that it was wrong and I did nothing to change it. I'm in a prison of my own mind.
The door is open, Mr. Howard.
But if I don't feel worthy of walking through it, if I cling to my dark and lonely self,
Then I will sit with you until you are ready to come out into the light. Do you see the lily pads?
yes, I suppose.
You can walk on them, you know.
Walk on them.
Here, let me show you.
It really is quite preposterous, you know.
I think it's marvelously fun.
How does it work?
You mean the science of it? I think we're much lighter than we used to be.
It really doesn't matter if you walk on the pads or the water, does it?
No, but I like to pretend it does.
How long did it take you to learn the trick of the place?
What do you mean?
I just remember how sad you were to think that you were going to miss ball downs and dancing and strawberries with cream and carriage rides in the park.
It all seems so silly to think that way now. It's like being afraid that you will forget your umbrella when there's never any rain. Or even if there is rain, you know now that you would rather walk in it than hide under your umbrella.
Do you think?
You can say it.
Do you think that I could learn to love Jack here?
That's just it, John. It won't be so hard here.
You think we ought to go in and see them?
Someone is coming. I think we'd better go.
He's gone, isn't he? Oh. He's so far away from home. What's to be done?
He said he wanted to be buried here. I don't think there's anyone for him to go home to. He said he wanted to be laid to rest in that little park near Daphne that belongs to Constantius. I'm sure the Count will oblige. You know, he was quite the favorite of the Empress. She admired all the work that he had done, the prisoner's friend, and all that. I'm sure Potemkin will want to give him a full state burial.
I'm surprised. He wanted all that pomp and ceremony.
He didn't. We could have dropped him in a pauper's grave as far as he was concerned. But it's not as though the funeral was for him. We hold funerals for our own comforts. He won't be embarrassed by anything we do.
Did you like him, Henry?
I suppose I didn't. I like a person who loves to hunt, who likes a slice of meat hot off the rack, and who enjoys a game of whist and a glass of port. No, I found John Howard a bit tiresome. So taken he was with helping his fellow man, he never enjoyed anyone. He was admired by everyone, but loved by no one.
Well, that's a harsh judgment.
Ask me no questions, and I'll tell thee no lies. Oh, I must say, I was one of his admirers. I didn't care much for his piety, but I sure appreciated his sheer doggedness. He once told me that he traveled over 40,000 miles in his life, and most of that on horseback. But the sad thing is, I don't think he changed anything. As far as I can tell, the conditions of the prisons and the hospitals are as bad as they've ever been.
Perhaps. But I think he tried to make people feel responsible for that. That a country should be measured not by its great monuments and public works, but by the way it treats the weakest among us. And I like to think we never will know where our influence will end. Perhaps 100 years or 200 years from now, someone will still be trying to make prisons more like what Mr. Howard thought they could be.
It's not enough that Parliament is full of reformers. I've got one here in my own home. Perhaps you're right. Maybe he did start something here.
He looks quite at peace.
Yes, I think you're right, dear. No one was ever more ready to die.
Sort of a play is it that ends with a man dying. I prefer the musicals myself. Full tankard, jaunty tune, chorus girls dancing gaily, if you please. Why a gentleman of Howard's means would spend his life tramping about through jails and hospitals is more than I can understand. When I look on him, well, I'm almost convinced there is something to what the preachers say. You know, a world beyond this place that is a better own. To be honest, there is always a moment when the music stops and the pub is closed and I'm left alone with just me little dark thoughts. But God, when the time comes, I pray you take this foolish soul of mine. Well, why you would want it is more than I can tell. God rest you, Mr. Howard. You're home again now.